The business will go as they go, period. I've never seen it otherwise.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never seen it. I've never seen the business not take on the personality of the founder at this
Yeah.
size. So if there's problems,
Look at thyself.
thyself, and it's fine, you can fix that, but just know that. Like people, they'll talk about this team and they're acting this way, and like, dude, it's your business, man. Like where'd they pick that up? Like they got it somewhere, or you allowed it, right? Or you let that happen. Go fix it.
Welcome to Frank Growth. I'm Jason Shafton, and I run growth consulting firm Winston Francois. Around here, we tell the truth about growing, the good, the bad, and the can't say it out loud ugly. Every episode, we get tactical with operators, investors, and builders about what works, what breaks, and what to do next. No fluff, no vanity metrics, no hustle theater, just signal. This is Frank Growth. Let's get into it. Today, we're talking to Wade Lowe about the GTM Rubik's Cube. Before we bring Wade on, a quick riff on today's topic. Everyone is trying to crack go-to-market in the age of AI. There's new tools, new channels, new playbooks every week, and almost nobody has figured it out. Here's why. The shiny stuff keeps changing, but the fundamentals haven't. Here are 3 traps I see all the time. Chasing tools over instinct. Automating a broken motion just makes break faster. Copying playbooks that don't fit. What works for a PLG SaaS company doesn't work for a marketplace, and vice versa. Skipping storytelling. The companies winning right now aren't just selling features, they're telling stories that earn trust. Wade has built, scaled, and exited 2 companies. He's led revenue orgs at 2 of the fastest growing companies on the Inc. 500, and he'll tell you the answer isn't a new tool. It's a foundational operator skill applied with discipline. That's the frame we'll use today with Wade. Let's get tactical. Wade, welcome to Frank Growth.
Hey, Jason, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Matt. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one too. You're one of those operators that I like to talk to when I want the unfiltered version of what's actually happening in revenue and go to market. 2 successful exits, 1 SaaS, 1 marketplace, revenue leadership at 2 Inc. 500 companies. And now you're the person founders call when they need a co-founder without the equity cap table drama.
Yeah.
Quick warm up in 1 sentence. What is go-to-market strategy?
New customer acquisition.
It's even shorter than a sentence. It's a phrase.
Yeah.
I
At
agree.
the end of the day, it's like, what are we doing to acquire new customers? Because if they're
Yep.
already in the ecosystem, it's probably less go to market. There's different motions for that. But when you're talking about like go to market, like you got to get a product or a service to market. So that means ultimately everything that I grade everything by, is it actually driving revenue or not? Because everything else is fluff. It doesn't matter. It's either driving revenue or it's not. So
Yeah, I totally agree. You've called GTM in the AI era a Rubik's Cube. What makes it so hard to solve right now, and what are most teams getting wrong?
everything's moving incredibly quickly. And I don't, it hasn't been settled yet, which I think creates a tremendous amount of risk and a tremendous amount of opportunity simultaneously. Where the humans are involved and where they not, it is the messiest I've ever seen it, which I think again creates a lot of risk for if you don't get it right, or if you get too far behind, and a lot of opportunity if you're ahead of the curve.
Give us the answer. What's the answer, Wade?
I'm literally trying to figure it out. The answer that I have right now for everybody is test. Like test, and test quickly and figure out what's going to work for you and what's not. Because I have not found that there's a standardized playbook where you can say, oh,
Yeah, go do
with
this.
this kind of a business, do this very specific thing. It's like, dude, figure out what's going to work for your business. And the only way I know to figure that out is to test things. Now, the good thing about AI is you can test really quickly and inexpensively, but you just have to be testing very aggressively.
I love hearing testing as a growth guy. So you say what's old is new again. What foundational skills are operators rediscovering that should never have been abandoned?
Interpersonal skills and face-to-face. Like some of the biggest results that I'm pretty embedded in 2 companies, and the best results we're getting are in person. Like getting in front of people, because I think everybody's getting inundated with a lot of noise, and maybe the noise opens the door. But at the end of the day, unless you're like I do B2B, so I don't know D2C, so I don't can't correlate those 2 things. But on B, especially for high ticket items, there's still a huge trust component, and they want to buy from people, and they're not going to go through an entire process without talking to somebody or knowing somebody, or especially if they're making hard decisions right now. But the human component to this, I think, is incredibly important. And that's what it used to be. And then they got away from that. And I think it's very much coming back to that.
Yeah. I feel like the pandemic changed how people think they need to show up in a professional setting, but no, you still need to meet people in person. Let's talk about storytelling. It keeps coming up as a growth lever. How do you use, narrative to actually move pipeline, not just, brand sentiment?
Yeah, I won't have much to say about brand sentiment because I've always been in smaller companies that are fighting against the Goliaths, which I like the underdog. I like playing the role of David. So it's really what story are you telling to the potential prospect or to the market that is different and is going to get their attention than what other people are doing. And what I've found is following the market, understanding what's happening in the market, then mapping the story around that to be able to then help people understand what's happening in the market educationally. And then here specifically is how we're helping other companies that do what you do. That seems to be resonating incredibly well right now. But I think having a broad understanding of the general market's important because you have to demonstrate that you understand what's happening. And then specifically, here's the problem that we're solving. Very quickly, you can determine is it a good fit or not.
You believe unique ideas hardly exist. If that's true, what actually kind of creates competitive advantage in go to market?
Especially now, I think it's real hard to come up with unique ideas. So it's really about the recipe, taking all the different ideas and then figuring out what recipe works for you so that you can bake the best cake. I don't think there's a lot of unique ideas out there. It's how you orchestrate and connect those ideas together to make it unique to you.
What does play where the smartest people aren't mean in practice? And can you give us an example?
What I am saying though is the really smart people that I would be competing with are not building businesses in that industry, in those industries, because it's non-sexy. It doesn't get a lot of pub. Or it doesn't do well for your status if you're a status person. All I care, like, what's important to me is making money. There you go. So I think it's always been helpful for me to be in industries where they're just the competitors. There's not as many of them, and B, they're not coming out of Silicon Valley. So I'm not saying that in a way to knock anybody, but it certainly creates opportunity because you can go in and differentiate. Because if you're a good operator, you can go in and actually create value that other people haven't created because they've been doing the same. Like one of the software business that we built, most of the competitors, with the exception of one, were still all software on-prem. Like, what are we talking about? Right? Like, that's an easier conversation. What cloud? What does that mean? That's an easier conversation than trying to go compete with building the next consumer app. I just think that's hard.
So you've led revenue at two Inc. 500 companies, I think 72nd and 23rd on the list. What was the inbound engine in those businesses that drove the explosive growth?
Google AdWords, both times, dude. Both times. And even one other one. Well, the one that was a 72nd, we were literally the first company to be advertising online with Google for that particular keyword segment in that industry. And so the business exploded. As much as I'd love to take credit for it, we had to orchestrate and manage that and build a sales team and figure out how to optimize that and then keep growing. But the explosiveness came from being first on Google to do paid ads for a very big industry.
You talk about a three-pronged fork: acquisition, retention, expansion. How do you sequence and resource those three when budgets are tight?
It's almost always has to start with acquisition. If you don't have the acquisition, then what are you retaining and what are you expanding? So it's always going to start with the acquisition component. And then ideally, as long as it's not a one-time transaction, it doesn't be recurring, but it can be repeat. Then you've got to be able to retain so they continue. So as you're adding new to the top, then you're continuously building on a base that already exists. And then the last is the expansion. So first it's going to be, we have to go get the customers. Then we have to make sure the customers are happy that we have. And then we can talk about how do we try to do more with the existing base. It almost has to go in that order.
You've said that leaders need to own specific parts of the business. How do you define ownership in a way that actually creates accountability and is not just, titles?
Yeah, I'll go back to if you're doing things that don't produce actual results, then you don't really own anything. So it's all about performance metrics. Like, what are we measuring? And typically it's a handful of things that are really important. And then there has to be a leader who owns one of those things. So let's say you've got 7 different departments in a bootstrapped organization, then you can't be a leader inside of that organization unless you own one of the primary metrics. And if you don't, then you can manage people, but you're not really leading anything. So you have to determine what are the primary drivers of, and it's all about growth because most of it is bootstrap. You're trying to figure out how to grow. Like, what are the levers for growing and who owns each one of those things? Or maybe they own a couple different ones. but they have to own them, and then you have to report on them, and then it's very apparent, very apparent, like who's doing well and who's not, because it's quantifiable. It's not about how somebody feels or whether their team likes them, or how what's the sentiment of the CEO. Are they buddies? It's like, dude, it's we're hitting the performance metrics or we're not. If the answers we're not, it's like, okay, what are we doing to improve in this area? And if there's not a good answer, that's when you typically start to see some fallout of the leadership team.
Different businesses need different motions, founder-led sales, in some cases, online, demand gen and others. How do you diagnose which motion fits?
It depends on the business for sure. Like, so the enterprise SaaS business that I had, there was no online demand. Like, it wouldn't have mattered. You could have had an unlimited budget on Google or even your SEO strategy. It just wouldn't, nobody was searching for it because it just wasn't that type of a business. So there was no other way to get that business to move other than like a founder-led sales motion. In other instances, you can quickly look to see what is the online demand. Is it competitive or not? And sometimes it's too competitive. Like, man, that's not going to be a great strategy to start because you're going to spend a bunch of money. You're not going to get a return on it. So you have to look at the business and look at the market and see what industry they're in and understand how are they currently. Like, I don't really work with companies that are 0 to 1. Like, they have to be post-revenue. That 0 to 1's a pain in the ass. So it's like, how are they currently getting customers now? And because they already have them, it's like, what channels are they coming from? Is it an inbound? Is it founder led? Is it a sales team that's pretty good and they can actually, they're doing a good job of outbounding? And then typically it's, let's double down on the quick win is always just to double down on what's working right now and do more of it. And then we can figure out what we want to do beyond that.
You've had two successful exits, one SaaS, one marketplace. What was the biggest GTM difference between building those two business models?
One was online demand driven and one was founder led sales driven. Those were the two very different, very, very different motions. One's much faster than the other, like way faster. And then I think the other component is on a marketplace, there's also a whole supply side. So when you have two motions, you have to go get your customers and you have to get supply at the same time. And those are actually both kind of sales. So you have to, the motion on those is different. It's a little bit more complicated. Marketplaces are more complicated because you have to do two things simultaneously.
When you step into a $5 million to $50 million company as kind of this co-founder on demand, what do you diagnose first?
The operating model. It's always the operating model, if they even have one. It's like, what's the operating model? Like, because if like, how are we operating? We're operating on gut and feel, and founders can do that for a while, right? Like, they just really know what's happening inside their business, but it's hard to systematize and it's really hard to diagnose, like, why are you winning or why are you losing? It's hard to know. And sometimes their gut's right, but being able to either look at the operating model and very clearly say, okay, look, these performance metrics, these assumptions are correct, or these aren't right. Like, I would never include these in here, or they're not that important, or focus on the wrong things. Or if they don't have one, then the first thing is you got to build one. And I've got a template that I use. It's not exact. 70% of it can always be duplicatable. So it's like, here's a template. I need you guys to get your data together and input this, and then we'll have a better understanding of like especially with historical data. Now, if they don't have any.
What's kind of the most common revenue bottleneck in that same revenue range? Is it this operating model issue, or is there something else? And how do you fix it?
It's when it's when a lot of the businesses have demand online. They have demand, digital demand, and that's how they're getting a lot of their business. That's why they grow quickly. But that plateaus at some point. It always does. And so when they plateau from trying to figure out, okay, we don't have any more budget to spend on AdWords. We don't have any more budget to spend on paid. Our ROI is starting to reduce on paid because you start getting into different parts of the market where you can't get as good a return anymore. There's like all these components to the online side of like the demand side. Once that starts to stall, that's when people start to freak out because they don't know what to do. It's like, I can't just put more money in the slot machine and pull it down and get it and have a very predictable ROI. It's like, well, then what are you going to do? You can't just not grow. So how, what are we going to do from here? Now, whether it's partnerships or whether it's an outbound, or whether you bring on BDRs, whether you want to make an acquisition and go non-organic versus organic growth, like whatever. The simple place where I typically see things is, oh, we were doing really well and now we've stalled and I don't know what to do next.
Yeah. Talent and culture kind of show up in the growth stories that you tell as well. How do you evaluate talent quickly when you're parachuting into a new org?
I think it's one of the things. I think it's one of my I think I don't have a lot of superpowers. I think that happens to be one of them.
Yeah.
There's one, being able to assess a talent, and two, being able to recruit talent. I think I'm pretty good at recruiting good people that are earlier in their career, but I can tell they're about to hit that slope where they're going to like really take off, but they're not quite seasoned enough to demand the amount of money they're going to be able to demand in 3 years. So you kind of catch them there. But there's certain ways that successful people operate. And it's not always just purely like, show me where your performance metrics are. It's just watching people operate. Like, how quickly do they respond? How well do they keep their commitments? How well do they communicate? How well do the teams do they work with the teams around them? Can they get things done? Are they proactive? Like, are they breaking things along the way? Like, are they creating drama? Are they roadblocking all the time? And they're just constantly talking about why things won't work and never participating actively in, well, okay, if it won't work, what can we do to make it work? Like, it's easy to be a critic. Everybody can be a critic. But then come to the table with, hey, I don't think it's going to work this way, but if we tried this, might work. Those, they're just they're intangible type qualities of like more soft skills than hard skills. But what I've found through my career is that there's just a certain way that, regardless of the role, that successful people operate, and it's pretty apparent pretty quickly like who operates that way.
Yeah. What does done for you revenue operations actually look like in practice? And how do you create space for the founder to breathe?
Yeah. So right now, what it looks like is me being like heavily embedded in two different companies with like people reporting to me, and I'm part of the like embedded in the company, like traveling and going to meetings and meeting customers and building, reorging the team. Like it's in like really in the business. And that's how it creates space, because all of a sudden the founder feels like they have another founder in the business that operates with the same level of kind of intensity and ownership that they do, not because it's my business, but because I founded it. Like, I just know that's just how I operate. Like, if I'm going to be in something, I'm going to be in something. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to make sure that we're driving to get the results, and we're focused, and we're deliberate about what it is we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to get there, and then messaging that out to the team so that it feels like they just have less of a burden they have to carry around, where they're always the one that's out like trying to lead the charge. It's nice to have somebody that you can like, I call it running mates. It's good to have a running mate. You can train by yourself. I think it's better to train with somebody else. You get a little bit more motivated, and they get that. But it's not because I'm like passively on the sideline, like I'm in the business.
What's one hard truth about scaling revenue that founders in this kind of 5 to 50 range consistently resist hearing?
The business will go as they go, period. I've never seen it otherwise. I've
Yeah.
never. I've
Yeah.
never seen it. I've never seen the business not take on the personality of the founder at this
Yeah.
size. So if there's problems,
Look at thyself.
look at thyself, right? Like, and it's fine, you can fix that, but just know that. Like, people,
Yeah.
they'll talk about this team and they're acting this way. And, like, dude, it's your business, man. Like,
Yeah.
where'd they pick that up? Like, they got it somewhere, or you allowed it, right? Or you let that happen. Go fix it.
Yeah. I think there's constructive and unconstructive
Yeah,
criticism, right?
for
Where
sure.
where is AI genuinely changing go to market right now? And where do you think it's just noise?
So the noise is definitely in the inbox. Like, everybody's got the same tools. Everybody's got this ability to be the same lists. Everybody can personalize an email. So that's the noise. The noise is in the inbox for sure. I think where it's having the biggest impact, and it's going to be very general, but because I won't like pick a tool or an agent or a build, but it's speed. It's speed. Like, how quickly you can move and test things is unlike any time in my career. So I think where it's having the biggest impact is on the speed. I also think where it's having a huge impact is this noise. It's creating a lot of noise. And most of that noise, I think, lands in people's inboxes or LinkedIn messages.
Yep. You have built this career around being present for your kids while also
Mm.
building companies, which
So
I so admire. How has that constraint made you a better operator?
I definitely traded some money for that, like, hands down. Like, could have built a bigger business faster for sure, you know? And that was a conscious trade-off that I don't regret it, but I knew like it was happening. So that's one. Like, I made the decision that I wasn't going to completely. I made a lot of sacrifices. I wasn't going to completely sacrifice my entire kids' childhoods to try to build something and turn it into a massive enterprise. So that was, and I had to have a conversation with my co-founder. Like, look, man, this is what I can give. This is what I can give. This is what I can do. We'll still build something. I think it'll still be meaningful. I think it'll be nice, but it's going to be, we'll be able to check a box and we'll do well. But if we need more, then I can't do it. Like, I'm not willing to do it. So it was a conscious decision that I had to,
All right. Speed round, Wade. Quick questions, quick answers. You ready?
Yep.
First thing you fix in every revenue org you walk into.
The operating model.
Founder-led sales. When does it stop being an advantage and start being a bottleneck?
6 months after they think so.
One question you ask in every talent evaluation that tells you the most.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
An AI tool you actually use in GTM right now, not hypothetically.
Oh, there's a bunch. The one I want to use the most is Monaco, and I can't use them because they're only working with VC-backed companies.
Acquisition, retention, or expansion. If you can only fund one, which one?
Acquisition.
Worst GTM advice that keeps getting repeated.
Be in more activity.
The book, podcast, or person that helped shape how you think about revenue.
Personal experience.
All right. If you could give one operating principle, and this isn't a speed round, this is just take your time, to every founder listening who's trying to crack the GTM Rubik's Cube, as you've said, what would it be?
Test quickly and really understand be able to clearly understand and articulate what value are you producing for the customer? What outcome are they going to get? It's not about you or your product or your functionality or your feature. All they care about, because I've sat in the seat, just like you sat in the seat, how is this going to help me? So you have to be able to articulate clearly and concisely to the other side. This is the outcome we're going to produce for you, not this is the what we do.
This is great, Wade. Where can people connect with you online?
Typically, LinkedIn is where I've got a little bit of a presence, but I would certainly not say that I'm a social maestro by any stretch of the imagination.
LinkedIn influencer.
Yeah.
Wade, this was very specific and operator real. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. It's great to see you.
That was Wade Lowe and a no BS look at what actually works in go-to-market when everyone else is chasing the latest AI playbook. Here's my quick top 3 from today. Remember these. 1, the business takes on the personality of the founder, period. Wade's been inside enough companies to say it plainly. If there are problems in the org, the founder either created them or allowed them. At 5 to 50 million in revenue, the business is a mirror. The hard truth most founders resist hearing is that fixing the company starts with fixing themselves. 2, playing where the smartest people aren't and win on operating model. Wade built and exited 2 companies in industries most operators would never touch. Equipment rental, construction, fuel. The competitors weren't coming out of Silicon Valley. That's the point. If you're a strong operator in a non-sexy industry, you can differentiate because no one else is bringing that level of rigor. And the first thing he fixes in every org, the operating model, because gut and feel do not scale. And 3, test quickly and articulate the outcome, not the product. Wade's answer to cracking the GTM Rubik's Cube isn't a tool or framework, it's speed. Test aggressively because AI makes testing fast and cheap. And when you go to market, nobody cares about your features. They care about one thing. What outcome are you going to produce for me? If you can't say that clearly and concisely, nothing else matters. Here's one action you can take this week that takes 10 minutes or less. Take your current pitch, the one your team uses on calls and outbound on your website, and rewrite the first sentence so it leads with the customer's outcome, not your product. If it starts with we or our platform, it's wrong. Start with what changes for them. That's frank growth. If this gave you something you can use this week, follow the show and share it with one operator or founder who needs it. I'm Jason Shafton from Winston Francois. We help tech companies build sustainable, repeatable growth with a proven operating system. Show notes and takeaways are in the description. Be frank and keep growing.